on knocking, but you can't come in. Keep on knocking, but you can't come in. Keep on knocking, but you can't come in. Come back tomorrow night and try it again.
Hello and welcome to the Erin Cruz Show. We have an amazing guest lineup tonight. Some very touching stories from several angel moms who have lost their children to illegals who have breached our border. Many different stories, very touching stories. You know, the border security, national security issue is one that's on the top of our agenda politically, nationally, one that the president holds close to his heart and is working on fervently for the American people. It's also close to our heart here at the Erin Cruz Show, and for me, Erin Cruz, and I know for you. We know that we've seen many as moms on different political platforms, in the media and what have you. We want to keep the story relevant. These moms will never get their children back, and no one can ever fix the problem and the things and the experiences that they've had and suffered through. We can help prevent future situations, future parents, loss of children, loss of life, loss of family members, feeling that same hurt. So we want to help keep this relevant. Please make sure that you share this stream right now. We want to make sure and get the message out to the people that this is a situation that's of dire importance, national security, keeping our communities and our families safe. The other issue that we're going to be talking about tonight is an exciting one. It's actually, in fact, something that everybody's talking about, and nobody really understands the fight behind the scenes and what's been going on across the state of California and across the nation. I know we hear the big stories, but we really don't hear the day-to-day fight of Californians and American citizens who are fighting that fight all day long, every day, for years, for fair and free elections. Yes, we are having somebody on from the state of California who's in that battle, an activist, somebody who's involved in the GOP, in their community, who's taken charge with their community members to fight a battleground right on her turf, and it's been going on for years. As a matter of fact, the fight and battle started in 2016, and we are now in 2019. You know, folks, these situations with election fraud, making sure we have strong elections, election integrity is intact, they don't get solved overnight. This is a battle. It's long-standing. We need to be consistent and consistently, with that, going through and systematically fighting each one of these battles. So, folks, please share this stream and make sure that you spread the good word. God bless each one of you. Sit back and relax and enjoy this edition of the Erin Cruz Show.
In the name of God and country, I learned to defy gravity.
To honor my family,
I lived in the belly of a beast.
I fixed the hearts of iron monsters.
I became a worm in the mud for dignity,
for honor,
For righteousness' sake.
for God and country.
I fought for you. I fought for you.
For you.
I fought for you.
I fought for you.
I fought for you.
I fought for you.
For you.
For you.
For you.
For you.
I fought for you.
I fought for you. I fought for you, and I'd do it again.
for listening. Again, please spread the good word. Go to erincruz.com to learn more. That's ERINCRUZ.com to learn more. God bless you. God bless the United States of America. As a matter of fact, we're going to be going right now into another segment. It's an exciting segment. We're going to talk about fair and free elections. Diane, a dynamo woman who is on the ground. I, as a matter of fact, saw her up at the CAGOP convention. It's the first time I met her in person. I'm so excited to have her on the show. So please enjoy this video from Trump, from Real TT 2020. I was going to say Trump supporter, Real TT 2020. You know, he always puts together something with impact, and please follow him if you're on Twitter. That's Real TT 2020. Sit back and enjoy, and we'll see you in just a few minutes with Miss Diane. Welcome to the Erin Cruz Show. Right now we have on with us Diane Richards. She is a political activist up in Trinity County. She's facing some legal battles in her area. Thank you for joining me here on the Erin Cruz Show and enlightening America and Californians with what's really going on the ground there, Diane.
Thank you, Erin, for having me. Really appreciate this opportunity.
Absolutely, absolutely. So tell us what's going on with the elections up there. I hear you're currently in a legal battle that started in 2016, but this legal battle goes way back, actually, before that, because there were problems, right? So when did you guys up there in Trinity start seeing these issues?
Well, in one of the elections in 2012, we were running some good old boys, very, people had done their time and served a lot of people for years, and they were older gentlemen, and we were shocked when they didn't win their supervisorial seats, that people that were out of the area that really nobody knew had won. And we're like, what's going on here? This is so odd. So we're like, okay, we pull up our bootstraps, let's start again. So in 2014, a very, very popular deputy sheriff ran for sheriff. And when he didn't win, we filed an election, a recount. And he chose me to do the recount, and they were very pushed back really hard on us. And we found out that it was in the primary of June 2014. We found out that the elections officer and the ex-elections officer were in the courthouse in the elections office for the entire holiday, for 3 days, basically. Everybody saw there. They admitted they were there for 3 days preparing for the recount. We're like, what is there to prepare for?
What's there to prepare?
So when we... Yeah, what are you preparing for? It's a county with about 7,000 voters at maximum, and of course only about 4,000 votes. So we're like, what is the big preparation?
Yeah, you
so
have
when we got in there, they wouldn't
votes. You know what? You hold them, and then you do the recount. That simple,
right? Well, this was our first foray into that. So we filed, read the law, we filed. You have to file within 5 days for a recount. So it's a really quick little thing, but then they get their little time to set it up. Right. So we had quite a few observers, and we had observers also. We trained with Election Integrity Project, Linda Payne, and she was just getting up and going, and they came up and trained us all, so we knew how to look at the polls, and we were shocked because in every yard was a sign for this deputy sheriff. His name is Mark Potts, and very people. Libertarian,
right?
Very popular, and so we figured something was wrong, and people, put the money together for this recount. It's not cheap for a recount. So when we got in there, they wouldn't let the observers see. They said, only Diane Richards can see all the ballots. I'm like, what? Just my two little eyes. And so luckily one gentleman was very...
Talk about intimidating, right?
One of the observers left, a young lady left the room to go to the bathroom. You have to use the restroom. And they said she can't come back in because she left to use the restroom. I mean, they were just making it up as they went. And she couldn't stand right over it. She was just watching me watch the ballots being counted. And what I saw was that they were all marked with the same pen. And our county has a very large population of vote by mail because they closed all the polling places. We only have a few polling places, so you're forced into voting by vote by mail. So, of course, people would use a pencil, a red pen, a green pen, a blue pen, whatever. And I'm like, how could they all have the same marker?
Thick point, you know, you have all sorts of widths of pen. Yes.
Yeah, and then, you know, some people do a check, an X, or whatever, strike, and they're all like, fill it in perfect.
Right.
I was like, something's wrong here. And so in the middle of the count, I said, stop. I want to put all these through the machine now. And and I asked them to bring in the voting machines. Now, these voting machines are Diebold AccuVote. And that was a machine. It's notorious for being able to hack and cheat on. They say third grader, I think it is, an 8-year-old third grader could probably hack it. It's so easy. And so I said, bring them in. And I go, oh. So they bring them in, they stack them up. And then I said, turn them around. And they kind of look like those old-fashioned VCRs when they're not stuck into the black box where all the ballots fall into. And they turned them around, and the seals were either missing or broken on all but one. And I asked the elections officer, I said, what in the world, why aren't the seals on there? Because you have to keep the seals on until for like 22 months.
Right, it's serious business. So
these are like seals that cover a memory card that records has the election, all the candidates' names, and records all the ballots. It's a memory card like you would put like in your computer. These are large, they're like the size of a card because they're old-fashioned from the 90s. But like you might use your camera card that you put in your computer. It's like that, but much larger, like the size of a playing card.
Think about this. Even our gas stations have seals which keep. You know, they put them on the gas pumps here in the state of California. In many areas, you'll see the one seal. It's across the edge to ensure that those counters that nothing has been breached.
Right, so that they can't fix it so that you're getting less gallons and stuff like that, because there's a way to program the gallon amount, so they calibrate them. So, security. And that's what they do. They're supposed to do with these machines is calibrate them, put the seals on, etc. So I said, well, what's up with this? Why are they all broken? She said, oh, they were damaged in transit. Now, the transit, first of all, we watched the poll workers. They carefully handled them. They put them in these velvet sacks, you know, and then they put a seal on it. It's a little lock. They weren't like dragging them behind their cars. You know, That's ludicrous. So that was a lie. It was an outright lie. And so I said, I want to take all the ballots now and put them in the machines and see how the machine counts them down. They're like, oh, no. We can't do that. We'll do that tomorrow. I'm like, no, I want to do it right now. I didn't want to give them time to reprogram. They're like, no, we can't do that. And so that's kind of how we ended, because I was clear that it was the ballots were being remarked, etc. So then that was 2014. We all knew something funny went on, especially with the deputy's race for sheriff. So basically I said, okay, I'm going to run. I'm going to run for supervisor because I can see we're going to have to take this much further. Right. So I ran for supervisor. Another nice lady, a Republican, also a rancher. I'm a rancher. She's a rancher. She ran in the next district, and another gentleman, a cowboy, a true cowboy and patriot, he ran in the other supervisorial district because 3 were up. Right. And you met him actually at the GOP.
Amazing
Mr. Fox.
Gentleman. Amazing gentleman. Yes.
Yeah. And very patriotic. Okay. And so we all ran, and really, I think we were doing rather well. But what we found out was we had, for instance, along the way, by the way, we had voter registration drives all throughout this in 2010, 2012, 2014. And what we found was that they weren't registering everybody. They were making up all these excuses why you have to have a special address and this and that. We're like, what? Because in our area, our addresses are kind of funny. We don't even get mail service. So we have to be
rural. Right? I mean,
very rural. Right. You don't have mail service. So you have a P.O. box, and your address might be whatever you make it up to be, you know, the 3rd mile down Highway 3. You know, it's very, in fact, if you look on the voter registration affidavits, the application people call it, but it's an affidavit where you swear that you're 18 years old, U.S. citizen, etc. It's really an affidavit. It's on like line 7, it says if you don't have a real address, just describe where you live, your cross street. So you can say I live on the highway of Main Street and Highway 3. Right. So that's the law in California. Now, it may be different in other states. So we knew that was funny. So I had hired a very expensive legal law team from Southern California that approached the elections officer and said, why aren't you these people, and we had a list of like 30 people that they were not registering, and they wouldn't even answer, and they said, well, you'll have to sue them. So again, at that point, I'm like, oh my goodness, how are we how can you imagine you can't even get your people registered? You know, just people I didn't even know, just people. It's, in fact, at that time,
talk about
2014,
of the vote. We always talk about access, and as a matter of fact, Democrats fight for access to the vote, right? In terms of registration, accessibility, and they don't want voter ID because they want to make sure everybody can vote. Whoever can vote. And here you can't even, an actual resident, you can't even follow the law and fill out the form and have them accept it as it's filled out for the state of California.
Right, and you're swearing to it. You're swearing that I am a legit, voter. Mm-hmm. And I'll tell you, most of the people that were not... Mm-hmm. Most of the people that were not registered were also minorities, usually Asians. Some of them were Europeans that had come over. So it was from a fairly poor area with no services, no roads and everything, real backwoods. Mm-hmm. And when I was out there, there's no way to contact them. Like I said, they don't have roads, they don't have electricity, anything. I was standing one day on the crossroads. A gentleman came with me because we had bears and stuff, and he was with me. And you just sort of flag people down, and there's no street signs, no lights, nothing. And you just like, someone drive by and you go, hey, and they're like, oh, what are you, broke down? We're like, no, but would you like to register to vote? And they're being all polite. They're like, okay, all right. And so we registered a lot of people, and all of a sudden, this particular day was a very, very hot day, and 3 law enforcement U.S. Forest Service, in other words, federal, with like SWAT type vehicles and SWAT gear on, all of a sudden, arrived all at once like it was a raid. And I like looked behind me because I thought maybe something was happening behind me, that all these cops arrived. And then I said, it's me? And they're like, what?
It's you, Diane. You're such a threat to liberty.
Oh, are you kidding? This was crazy. And they had their hands on their guns and everything. And my dog, which I forgot my dog was with me, was a big Mastiff. And she was laying under my car because it was so hot. I even forgot she was there because she was sleeping the whole time. Like when people would stop, she wouldn't get up or anything. But she knew something was wrong. All of a sudden, there she was. She had run out in front of me between these officers coming towards me, like very aggressively, and I'm like, oh my God, they're going to shoot my dog. I grabbed her, and they said, is your dog attacking us? I'm like, if she was attacking you, you would know it, But I held her, and they're like, what are you doing here? I'm like, I'm registering people to vote. Are you? And I said, are you interfering with the election process?
Right.
And what they did was they sat there and it sat in their cars there, and no one would come by or even stop. They thought they were, busting me or something. Right. People would come down the road, see them, and turn around and leave again. I mean, it was scary looking.
Right.
And allegedly, only one of these vehicles is in our county. They still only have 3 of these type of law enforcement operations in our county, only one. And so to have 3, they had to call them from outside the area. So someone in our local government, I'm sure, had them go do that to us. So that was, eventually I left because no one would come by then. So that's exactly, they're trying to stop us, everything they've got from registering people, if you can imagine that. And I'll tell you, it was really scary. We have pictures of it, though, because my friend ran around and very sneakily took pictures of them. Right. So we had proof of it, etc. And, but anyway, so then when I was running, what we found out, we had a big registration drive. We had a big cultural event for Asian community in my area, my particular district, and hundreds of people came because everybody brought food. It's free food, and to get to know each other, because when you're out in the woods, hardly anybody knows anybody. So it was a big get together, and we registered 96 people. That's a lot of people.
Yes, that's wonderful.
And it was a great event, delicious, wonderful, special Asian. And so then they turned it in. The lady that was running for the other supervisor district, she and her husband and another gentleman who was now running the Election Integrity Project, they turned in the 96 voter affidavits the next day. That was May 19th. And your deadline's May 23rd. So we were completely within the deadline. Well, we later found out that they only registered about 30 of them in time. So when all these people showed up to
Wow.
vote on June 7th, 2016, they were told you're not registered.
Yet their
You can imagine.
registration was submitted.
That's right, and it's supposed to be valid the day that it is signed and the day that it is received. It was within the time frame. You have like 2 weeks before the election.
I mean, and here,
And so-
you know, Diane, I'm going to stop you right here, right now. Because here we have now a situation in 2018 where we saw people had same-day registration. Boy, not only were they totally expedited, but they were given rights that these individuals were not given rights to do. And here, your particular county, Trinity County, had the opportunity of time to make sure that these individuals that had submitted their voter registration via your voter registration drive, they had time to be able to process their requests. But now, it's okay to just register them same day and accept them same day, and it doesn't matter. I mean, talk about bias. Talk about disrespect.
It's
for the
really
law
corruption.
process.
It's
Yes.
corruption.
Yes,
It's election corruption. This is what we're dealing with in California. And I will tell you, the majority, almost all the ones that didn't get registered in time, they were all Asian. And they knew that those were going to be supporters of mine. I have a very good relationship with them for years now. And so that was easy to pick them off.
It's
you know,
like
if your
it's
name
like
ended in
small.
E or
Everybody
Yang,
knows
hey,
everyone.
that
Right.
one's going to be put on this pile on the bottom of the pile somewhere, which again is illegal. It's a federal law and state law violation. Very big. This is a big deal. These are felonies, what they're doing here. And so what we decided at the election, the day of the election, they were turning them away. They said, if you want to vote, go all the way, which is like 45-minute mountain road to the elections office. I called the elections officer and I said, is this what you're having done to these people? And she said, yes. And I said, well, are you going to be open till 8 so they can go over there and vote? No. I'm like, well, you can't. You have to be open till 8 or you have to let them vote here. And she's like, just told me not to call her anymore. And so they were really trying. They were confused about the situation. They thought they were registered. She never sent them. In this state and actually across the country, you have to get a notification card. If you register to vote, you have to get a card or a letter from the elections office saying, congratulations, you're now registered as a Republican, Democrat, nonpartisan, whatever, and here's your polling place. Well, nobody in Trinity County has ever gotten one, ever. They decided here in Trinity County, we don't need to do that. Even though the state Secretary of State pays for the letters and the cards, then they pay for the postage. So they can't say they can't afford it. That's baloney. So they completely violated both state and federal law. So nobody had an idea whether they were registered, weren't registered.
Right. On multiple levels in several situations as well.
Oh, I mean, I could go on for about 3 days on the violations. But at the end of the night, I actually, when these particular diebold, so they can push a button and get the count there were over 100 provisional voters, by the way, that day. They let them vote provisionally.
Okay.
What we didn't know, they had them vote because they said they weren't registered. And I'm sure the majority of them were these Asian people that had registered the week before. So 2 weeks before. So what we didn't know, because we hadn't seen it, was the ballots that they had them using were counterfeit. They weren't real. They were actually fake ballots.
Wow.
Now, this is a big, big deal because the state of California, if you're elections officer, and in fact, in our area, I'll tell you the actual numbers. We have 7,000, at that time, we had 7,702 voters, which of only 4,488 allegedly voted. But you're supposed to, the protocol is to order 75% ballots of your voter base. So if you have 10,000 voters, you're going to order 7,500 if you're following it. So she did not order 7,702 or 75% of that. She ordered 11,000, way over what our voter registration is. Now, you wonder why, except then if you go back to the 2014 where it looks like they remarked ballots, then you might not wonder so much why they had all these extra ballots. So they had plenty of ballots. They did not have to have any. They're not allowed to make up ballots anyways. You cannot do it. Like if the truck carrying your ballots to your county for voting falls off a bridge and you know, goes underwater and all the ballots are lost, the governor has to make a special election for your county. You cannot make your own ballots. There are some special systems where you can make your own ballots, but it's a very expensive machinery system, and it has to be approved by the Secretary of State. You can't just start photocopying ballots. But these were not photocopied ballots. She admitted in the trial she made them herself. She designed them and made them. So they basically had planned to disenfranchise the voters, and they never had any count of how many they printed, how many they sent to the polling places, how many were voted, and how many came back. It was a wild card all the way. So that came out in the trial. But what we did was, you have 30 days to file election contests. Right. We weren't filing an election recount because all they let you do is count the ballots they say you can count, not the ones that perhaps the provisionals, etc. So we filed the election contest within the 30 days, and the presiding judge of Trinity County dismissed the case. And
this is an important part right here. Now,
okay,
speak
this
kind
shows
of slowly because I want people to understand this part. Go ahead. So
you file a thing called a verified election contest statement with the court saying, I'm contesting the election. And then the judge has to set the trial within 20 days. It's a very speedy process, and it's mandated by law. Mm-hmm. She instead dismissed the case and said, you didn't follow the protocol. It should have been 5 days. So we refiled and said, what we call reconsideration. Here's the case law. Here's the law. This is not a recount. It's a contest. We have 30 days. She said she denied it, and so we were forced to go to the appellate court just to have this trial, little election trial. Usually they're little and not too complicated. In the court, and so that took 6 months. It's appellate court, and that's called an expedited process. So in February,
sorry, I don't mean to laugh, but 6 months, and meanwhile you have the elections probably already been called, right?
Oh yeah, it's been called, and he's been seated in January. So in February, the appellate court asked for an oral argument. In other words, have all the attorneys show up and argue why, you know, this is just a technicality of law. And luckily we got a very, very good law firm, Brad Benbrook and Steve DuVernay, he was the one that did it. He was amazing, and I recommend him for anybody that wants to do something like this. But nobody wants to do anything like this, but if you have to. So well, anyways,
people may have to throughout the state of California, in fact, and we'll get into that in a little bit, but go on.
Anyways, it was a beautiful thing. The judges were animated. There were 3 appellate judges animated going, what's going on in Trinity County? How could they have not counted these ballots? So it was they all concurred that we were correct. It was 30 days, and what they call remanded it back to the lower court. Go have the election contest. So that was set for July. By the time it comes back, it's all so slow. So now we're basically a year away from the election, and this guy is seated. That allegedly won. However,
he's already making decisions. He's already seated. He's been in there for a year.
And I'll give you an example. I only lost by 28 votes, but I won the polling place. I won there. Oh, at the polling place at the end of the night, the poll workers did not go straight to the elections office with the machine and the ballots. You know where they went?
Right.
To their house. With the machines and the ballots. You can't do that. That's illegal. But that's what they do here because, hey, it's Trinity County. So then they eventually made it to the elections office, and they said I lost by 28 votes. So in the election contest, when it got remanded back, we asked for all the election materials, the ballots, etc., the machine tapes that come out of the machines, everything, so we could see and inspect. And the county council came out, and we filed our subpoenas and said they weren't recognizing our subpoenas. No. And we found out we're using public funds to pay for the other side, this candidate named John Finland, his bills, his legal bills are being paid by our tax dollars, which is completely a felony. But they were doing it no matter how many times we told them this is a felony, you need to stop it. We told all the board of supervisors, etc. They continue to this day to pay his bills. And so that's very unfair because here you have to fight City Hall and they're paying all the bills for candidates. So that's illegal. it was decided in the turn of the century you couldn't use any public funds for whether it's initiatives, referendums, or candidates. You know, that's not fair, right? You couldn't have the government paying Hillary's, campaign bills, et cetera, and neither, or her legal fees, for instance. You can't have it. They have to pay it out of their campaign funds. So anyway, so when we filed it, we eventually came back and they wouldn't let us have the stuff. So we were doing everything pro per, meaning yourself without attorneys. But when they wouldn't let us have any election materials, we decided we have to hire a law firm.
Right, exactly.
And we did. And they still fought us tooth and claw. No, you can't have this. You can't have that. Everything is a public record. Everything in elections is a public record. No matter what they say, it's a public record. So that's what we fought them. Eventually, we got our first trial date, which was 2.5 years later, which was November, or this past November, the week of Thanksgiving, if you can imagine.
Of course.
It's snowing, it's terrible weather,
time of the year.
Your witnesses are in other places, etc. They're all at their family homes across the country. Mm-hmm. I'm like, wow, that was very interesting. And we only went for 2 days at first, and then in those 2 days, though, a very interesting thing came out. The supervisor that won, my friend, who's a rancher, she won the other race, and she revealed, they were asking why, how come she befriended these Asians and stuff, because she's quite good friends to them as well. And she said, they're just...
How dare you befriend community members?
Yeah, how dare you befriend them, And so she says, well, they're wonderful people, and they're being shunned, and et cetera. So she told a story that none of us knew. There was a young boy, an 8th grader, Asian boy, who wanted one of her puppies. They're like farm dogs. They're guardian farm dogs. They guard the sheep and the cows and stuff like that. Because we have a lot of cougars and bears and what have you. So you have to use these dogs or you won't have any livestock left. Right. And he wanted a puppy, and they're so cute. So she didn't want to give it.
Of course they are.
Yeah. Well, they're a puppy.
I know.
But anyway, so she didn't want to just give it to him because, then you don't learn to work, or, she doesn't believe in spoiling kids. So she's raised a lot of kids. She had 6 of her own, as I do. And so she said, you could work on my farm doing farm chores, and then after, a certain amount of hours, and I'll give you a puppy. So he earned his puppy, and off he went. Now, he could have come back to work for her, she said, because she would have, he's stacking wood, firewood, and things like that, little chores.
Like mowing
he never came back.
And doing this and that to earn extra, spending money and things that you'd like.
She thought, well, maybe he only wanted the puppy, so he never came back. So she just recently saw his parents in the grocery store, and she said, where's your son? He never came back. I loved having him at the ranch. Where's little two? And they said, he's dead. And she's... Yes, I'm sorry to go there, but this is what came out in the trial. And he told the supervisor and said that they found him hung in the forest with his puppy underneath him crying. Somebody hung this little boy, and probably because he was working for her, being the supervisor that they were opposed, this corrupt government. And it was reported to the sheriff's department, but it was not investigated. Nobody knows anything about how this happened. No little boy who just got his little puppy is going to hang himself, I can tell you right now. No 8th grader hangs himself. And so this is something, again, we don't have any investigations of the murders and what have you that happen here. People just disappear. So this was a huge shock for us during the trial. We were all crying, but there were 2 people that weren't crying in the room, the elections officer and the county council. And the county council said,
how can you not be moved by such a tragedy? I'm hearing this and I'm starting to get teary-eyed. I mean, the racism, the tensions there, the obstruction in terms of the elections and allowing people to vote, and you have this huge issue with intimidation, even by law enforcement, as it sounds, and then you have a child who is obviously murdered or suspicious death, and nobody does an investigation, and nobody in the courtroom
can you imagine
by this?
Right?
A community
Yeah,
member?
this is This is how deep the corruption is. We are talking about probably the most corrupt county in the United States. I'm sorry, but this is where we're at here.
You do not need to apologize for the reality which we are facing here in California, because we currently have socialists in urban areas, you know, using tactics to sway the vote in their direction. We saw 1.5 million people are removed off the voter rolls and all of this. We have unprecedented amounts of voter fraud or corruption or what have you from the highest levels up at the Secretary of State, because they can take care of these situations. But then we have now a situation where you're seeing that an entire community of Asian Americans, as it seems, is being facing racism to the point of possible death of a child. I mean, this is yes, beyond.
It's in fact they don't give them services. They pay their taxes. The roads are taken care of. They don't snowplow. They don't grade them. They have no electric, no water, no sewer. You name it, they don't have it, and they don't let them build. They make all kinds of excuses why they can't. They're living in shacks out there, hovels. And they tell them, if you try to build anything, we're going to... It's a long story, but you brought up the Secretary of State.
Right. As it relates
I want to tell you about the Secretary of State.
This is a real threat. Right. Go ahead.
The Secretary of State in 2014, when I was running the Election Integrity Project, because I wasn't running for office, we had every polling place covered, et cetera. We were able to document hundreds of violations. People wrote out their complaint for the Secretary of State. We mailed it off to the Secretary of State. Election Integrity Project helped, shuttle that through too, and nothing was done by the Secretary of State. Nothing to see here. And this is what you call not voter fraud.
Nothing from the governor. Nothing. Nobody blinked an eye.
A complete denial that there's any problem here. And this is what you call election fraud. So you have voter fraud where voters are cheating. Mm-hmm. And if you have very massive systemic voter fraud, then you know that the elections official has to be complicit in it, just to let you know. But what we have here is actually the election fraud of the election official and the people working.
I don't think you're unique, quite frankly. I don't think you're unique at all. And I go back to my run for U.S. Senate against Dianne Feinstein, where I had to get nomination forms, right? And individuals have to sign them, put their registered address, and do all the formalities. And you submit them to each county for which you collected the signatures. And counties range between 11% rejection rate and about 30%, depending on which county it was. LA County had over a 66% rejection rate of my signatures.
Wow.
Talk about wondering where the disconnect is. The groups of people I was receiving signatures from were staunch Republicans in gatherings where obviously they're politically active. Obviously they're somebody who, knows how to fill out these forms. But you wonder, is this bias? Is this, actual complete election fraud by the county registrar's office, in terms of being completely overboard on their analysis of these signatures, and finding just little something, or are they just completely writing off? It's really unclear. I did end up
I will tell
you, but I think there's a bigger problem here, and it's not just Trinity County.
Right, you're right about that. In fact, there was a case, I believe it's somewhere up here, it might have been Alameda County, where this young man tried to vote several times, and each time in a major election, they were rejecting his signature. So the ACLU took up his case, and it was finalized, I believe, in 2016, where it said, the appellate court, they took it to the appellate court, I believe. I don't think it went to the Supreme Court, but appellate court of California, and they said, you have to accept these signatures. This is ridiculous, because nobody is a handwriting expert.
Right.
And so this happened. A lot of the votes that did not get counted, a huge amount, a very high percentage of votes did not get counted in my my district, for instance, several precincts. And on there was SM, signature match. That's just ludicrous. I mean, it's like, do they really think that there's someone coming out of the woods to cheat on the election?
I mean, seriously.
So this is, like you say, it's a way of knocking them out.
Right.
That's how they knock them out. And so this has to stop as well. We don't want people who aren't legit using them. However, it's very easy to see maybe one loop looks like it, maybe the rest doesn't, but you can see the major capitalized letters of Mary, the M, that should be pretty static.
Right.
And then as people get older, they write a little, more scribbly when they get older. Your signature isn't as great. And so they're supposed to take that into account. And it always says to decide liberally for the voter. Well, these elections offices aren't, for instance. And I'll tell you where another thing. There is in Sonoma, County of Sonoma here in Northern California, they have these die bulb machines too, which again are the worst of the worst. There isn't anything worse than they are. And instead of pushing the button at the polling place to see what the result is, they just pack them up and they take them to the elections office. So everybody in the polling place doesn't even know what it was. There's no reason not to let them push the button and let the machine count it right there. Right. Why are they requiring it to go take them all, bundle them all up in every polling place and take them to the main site and so that they can push the button? That's ludicrous. So again, they have these little rules that this is the ways that they steal elections. They are stealing our elections in California. I get so upset when I hear across the nation like, oh, you Californians, you're just a bunch of this and that's, right? And you're electing these people. And I keep saying, we're not electing them. We produced Ronald Reagan, and don't you forget it.
Right,
and
absolutely. Absolutely. Not only did we produce a governor and then pushed out to become president, one of the most impactful presidents in terms of Republicans that we've had in recent history. Now, I want to take you back real quick, back to the 2016 situation with your supervisor issue, because you sent me some of these documents, and one of the things I want to talk to you about was how they used the argument for the primary election. Do you recall that area of the...
yes.
Yeah, I want you to kind of go over that, how they used kind of a juxtapositioning, if you will, to make their argument rather than really looking at the process of how things work and explain to the people some of the ways that they're manipulating.
Using the court and trying to use the law. They said that in a primary election you have only 5 days because it's a very fast election because you have to get ready for the general election. But the supervisor race commuted to a general election because there was no runoff. So it becomes general. It is not a primary because there were only 2 people running, etc. So we argued that, and it was very interesting in the oral argument where our attorney was saying, well, it's clear, it's black and white. You can really tell it's 30 days. It said, in fact, you could have 6 months to file election contests if it's very egregious, like bribery and stuff like that. You could take 6 months because you have to sometimes ferret this stuff out. But so it was so funny because it wasn't funny, but you have to think. Think back. I have a strange sense of humor. Okay. But the justices, this appellate court justices, kept saying to the other side, you have no other eggs in your basket. How you're admitting it's a general election, so therefore the 30 days applies. Well, Your Honor, but they might ask for a recount. They're like, no, they don't have to ask for a recount in an election contest. So they kept saying, is there anything that they were trying to pull it out of the guts of this attorney that was representing this candidate that's being paid by our tax dollars and could not bring any other argument. So it was really under the general election. It was very, we understood it. I'm not a lawyer. I understood it to be 30 days.
When I read it, and some of these things they make out to be, well, you're not an attorney or you're not this or that. Elections should be able to be understood by the general public. Is how I look at this. It's like the U.S. Constitution. It's basic. It should be very basic because what other way can we be involved in the process, right? It shouldn't be so cumbersome that we can't deal with these things ourselves. Otherwise, we end up with a corrupt government that, as you're seeing, that bully tactics the regular folks from running for office and actually being a citizen-run community and government organization. I don't think we should have these big power mongers in there. Our government should be run by us, we the people, and we should be able to run and do so and fight these things with the understanding that the materials are that basic. And as you saw, I could read it, you could read it, and it was easy to understand. The judge was laughing basically at your opposition, saying anything else, but the biggest thing I see here is intimidation. Intimidation, intimidation, and intimidation. Try to make the process so thick and hard and rough and uncomfortable that you just give up. And the thing that you didn't do was you didn't give up. You kept fighting. And that's something that I want Californians to see, that we have the ability to make impact in our communities like you did. But we have to continually and constantly be looking at the real issues, which are on the community level like yours were. What do you have to say to people in terms of educating them on the process and how to take it? Because, we talk about a lot of these problems and the corruption and even up to, potential murder of a community member. When you're facing this sort of thing, how can community members just like you get involved in their towns to combat the corruption? Because we need those solutions.
Well, we basically started with our Tea Party. And we got, a lot of people got involved in our Tea Party in the county. It grew, and so we call it a Patriot Party, but it's Tea Party. And then we said, well, what can we do? We can get people elected, but we found out you can't get elected, so we realized we have to do this sort of struggle. But one of the things that we found out was that there are ways that, even though, they're using paper ballots, but they're manipulating them. Mm-hmm. So there is a way to even still use machines, but you have to get rid of all the machines we have. There are machines that scan it and can load it in real time to the internet so that you will see every ballot count that is voted. Now, it won't have their name on or anything, but you can count, 100 votes for Erin and 100 votes for Dianne Feinstein. You can count that, and they can put it on the internet, so you could be sitting there eating your dinner and count them as they pass by, and you can upload it to your computer, etc. Look real time on it, or live streaming, that kind of thing. So there are voting machines that will count it and upload it, so you can see real time those ballots, and you can count if you want to count the presidential, you want to count the senator. So there's a way to do it and still have machines, although there has to always be a paper ballot, and they really need to be under lock and key. And that's the thing we found, and ours were not under lock and key. We caught the sitting supervisors going into the elections room with their own keys. So it has to be, you have to make sure that they're under super lock and key. Only like 1 or 2 people have those keys, etc. Nobody can get to the ballots. So there's a whole process, but contacting Election Integrity Project would be probably the first thing, so you can learn what you're supposed to be looking for. They can also contact me. You can have my phone number. You can give it out to people. I don't care, because we really know, we've gone through the very depths of this corrupt system. Right.
And you mentioned Election Integrity Project. I've spoken with, Linda Payne, and I've had Reef Weiss on the show. And we continually push people in counties to get involved and get their GOP or their Tea Party groups, whoever it is, together and to get trained. They do online trainings. They do in-person trainings and workshops. They're expanding. They're going through this fight with LA County. They're going to be doing further investigations, I think, into Orange County. They're really trying to do great things, but people have to get involved. And that's why I also started Restoring America Now, the humanitarian side as well as the Action Fund side. And we're going to be offering basically a portal or a webpage, if you will, to all of the different areas where people can get resources from the state, the feds, all the way down to the local and Election Integrity Project, because part of it is there's so much information out there that people don't know where to go. And people like you have so much valuable information to share, and wisdom and experience. And we need to, this is part of our Patriot Connection, connecting patriots and patriots, and keep that conversation going. So with your permission, I'd like to add your information on our portal so people can reach out if they have questions as well, because, the government isn't the be-all, end-all. We need to report these things officially and go about it. It's a very, important process to make sure it has its checks and balances and that communities and counties are following the laws. But I think that sometimes as patriots, we need to have that support system in place, encouragement in place. They make it so complicated, that just knowing that other people have been there and have guidance and support is so important. So important.
Yes, we'll be happy. You can put my information up, all my information. I don't care. The bad guys already have it, so the good guys can have it. But
now you
basically,
sound like me. Now you sound like me running for office. Erin, why did you run for office? Because I'm fed up. I'm fed up, and in order to change the process, you need to be a part of the process, right?
Right, and I will tell you, I want people to run for office. Run for the school board, run for the dog catcher, whatever. Just run.
Yeah, just be a part of the process. Right.
Because they have all those seats. They're totally infiltrated. Liberals, Democrats, corruption. I mean, right now, we're still in the trial. They had 2 days of the trial in January, 3 days in November, then 2 days in November, 3 days in January, and now we're waiting for more time in March, which again is the corrupt court that is causing this to happen, where we should just have 1 or 2 weeks of the trial, and instead it's broken up like this.
So, and when is that election coming up again? So they're going to further... In like 2 years. Right.
So he's still got 2 more years, so I could get in and still make a difference. But I will tell you, in the meantime, the ex-supervisor, this I want to tell you because people need to understand the realities, and I don't mean to scare people, but this is the way it goes.
It's not about fear. It's about truth.
Yeah, on Facebook, our local Facebook page for my town, the ex-supervisor in the other county that lost over there to my friend, encourage people to run me out of town. In the meantime, they've shot and killed my dog, and they shot and killed my horse. And this is just in the past 3 months to try to scare me. The sheriff has been here, etc., very aware of the situation. Pardon me?
This is the same horse we have in our picture? Is that...
No, that was her buddy. That was his girlfriend. It was a white horse, a parade horse, very highly trained. And we went out one day to go shopping for 2 hours, and he came back, and there were 2 bullets in his head. And the same with my dog. I caught who did that, and the DA is not prosecuting. I literally caught him doing it, and it was a puppy, a 5-month-old puppy. This is the tactics they use. In fact, I believe my car was sabotaged. I went to a funeral this past weekend, and all of a sudden my drive shaft fell out when I was driving it, which on a car where it's a 1,000-pound, pressure on the bolts to keep them in place. It's a 4-wheel drive car, so it's not like a little Corolla or something. This is a very stout car. To have your drive shaft just fall off, obviously somebody tampered with my car. So you have to be willing. You have to understand that it's not easy. But our founding fathers gave up their fortunes, their families, their lives even, to give us this wonderful country. So believe me, we're in a war. It's good against evil. That's what it is. It's not even about the law. This is a struggle, because the law is pretty decent. It is a struggle of good against evil.
Well,
God against Satan. You choose your side.
Absolutely, absolutely. Diane, I have to tell you, you have our support 100%, 1,000%, and I know you're not alone. I mean, it sounds extreme, but I've seen the intimidation tactics. I've experienced them, the death threats, and I have nobody shot my dog, praise the Lord, but they'll do anything to stop us from doing what's right and what's good. And I'm just so proud of you to call you a friend and call you a fellow woman of Christ and sister in Christ. And we're right there with you, and we have your back. Anything that we can do, community members can do to reach out and help you. I don't know. Do you have a legal fund set up where people can donate? These are some things that, maybe people can contribute.
We did at one time. I don't know if we still have it. I can look and see if we still have it up and send it to you. But one of the things you can do is actually call the governor's office, call the Secretary of State, the Attorney General, and say, when are you going to investigate Trinity County?
Right.
The corruption through the court, just about every department. And you can imagine what they're doing to me, what they're doing to people that are poor, the Asian community and the poor, the elderly. They are attacking them, controlling them. They are all frightened. They're truly frightened. The electorate here is frightened. I'm not frightened. I tell them, take a number and get in line, stand in line, because I'm going to do this. I have 6 children. I am not leaving this fight to them. I'm going to do my part. Hopefully I can make a difference. But you don't leave this for our future generations to do.
No,
we have to do it.
Not. We have to do it. It's our responsibility. And, well, I just want to tell you it's time for our interview to end. I do want to have you back on the show, Diane, and get an update and really hear a lot more about maybe what, comes out of some activism that maybe we can help send your way, and then also with the court situation. But I want to encourage folks right now, please get involved, speak out about Trinity County, write the governor, write the AG, let them know what you've heard today, how much it means to you to have them take action against the corruption there that Diane and her community are facing. This is very serious stuff. We all play a part. We're in this together. We're all facing a lot of different battles, yes, but we need to make the time and make these situations a priority. The Democrats never stop. The progressives never stop. We need to be, a lot more active and take that time, make that time to make a difference in our communities. Diane, thank you again for being on the Erin Cruz Show and sharing your testimony with us. We're just so grateful to have your voice out there fighting for California.
Well, thank you very much for the opportunity. Remember, we can take California back one county at a time.
Absolutely. And we're going to start with Trinity, and we're going to start with Riverside and San Diego. Okay, we're just going to do them all. We're going to have to all work together, though. Yes? Amen?
That's right. Amen. Amen,
Diane.
sister.
Thank you again.
Thank you.
I'm feeling glad I got sunshine in a bag. I'm useless, but not for long. The future is coming on, it's coming on, it's coming on, it's coming on, it's coming on.
Finally, someone let me out of my cage. Now, time for me is nothing cause I'm counting no A's. Nah, I couldn't be there. Nah, you shouldn't be scared. I'm good at repairs and I'm under each snare. Intangible, bet you didn't think, so I command you to. Panoramic view, look, I'll make it all manageable. Pick and choose, sit and lose, all you different crews. Chicks and dudes, so you think it's really kicking tunes. Picture you getting down in a picture tube, like you lit the fuse. You think it's fictional, mystical, maybe spiritual hero who appears in you to clear your view when you're too crazy. Lifeless to those, the definition for what life is. Priceless to you because I put you on the high list. You like it? Gun smoke, you're righteous with one toe. You're psychic among those, possess you with one go.
I'm feeling glad I got sunshine in a bag. I'm useless, but not for long. The future is coming on, it's coming on, it's coming on, it's coming on, it's coming on.
The essence, the basics, without it you make it. Allow me to make this childlike in nature. Rhythm, you have it or you don't, that's a fallacy, I'm in them. Every sprouting tree, every child of peace, every cloud and sea. You see with your eyes and see destruction and demise. Corruption in the skies from the surprise. Now I'm sucked into your lies through rust, so not as muscles but percussion to provide for me as a guide. Y'all can see me now cause you don't see with your eye. You perceive with your mind, that's the inner. So I'ma stick around with Russ and be a mentor. Bust a few rhymes so motherfucker remember what the thought is. I brought all this so you can survive when law is lawless. Feeling sensations that you thought was dead. No squealing, remember that it's all in your head.
I ain't happy, I'm feeling glad I got sunshine.
We have on with us now Miss Agnes Gibney. She is an angel mom. She has a heart of gold, and she's in the fight to ensure that we have strong national security and that our borders are secure. She's right in the front lines, folks. She needs your support. Please sit back, listen to her story, and please share it with the world. And don't stop sharing it. We need to keep this battle right on the forefront, right in the front of Americans' minds. What happened to this woman can happen to anyone, so long as we don't have strong national security and strong borders. Sit back and enjoy hearing from Miss Agnes. Hello and welcome back to the Erin Cruz Show. We have a guest on with us right now. Her name is Agnes Gibney, and she's going to share with us about a very touching something that happened to her and her family. Rana Da Silva, who, can you tell us, I'm just going to go right into it, Agnes. We're not going to waste any time. Can you tell us what happened to your family in the loss of Ronald?
Yes, Ronald was my firstborn. My only son was murdered, shot and killed by a Mexican gang member who had a history of criminal activity, and he intended to shoot someone else. It doesn't matter. My son is the one that got the bullet, and he immediately after the shooting he fled to Mexico. What a concept, and people are not really paying that much attention to the crime that's happening in this country, but this is more frequent than people realize. And eventually this individual turned himself in because the police found out through their investigation that his girlfriend was depositing her welfare check at a local credit union, and he was withdrawing it in Tijuana, Mexico to live on. So they were going to press charges against her, and eventually she asked him to turn himself in, and it took about, I want to say 3.5 to 4 months before he finally turned himself in. He's currently in prison, due to be released next year.
No.
In 2020.
No.
Yes.
How long ago
Yes.
did this happen, Agnes?
It happened in 2002, April 27, 2002. This April will be 17 years that my son has been gone, and it has been, I gotta say, the biggest battle I have ever had to face in my life and my family. It didn't just impact me and affect me as his mother, but it affected my family in a huge manner, because 4 months after my son was murdered, my only sibling, my only brother, Laszlo, had a massive stroke, and he died the next day. The stress was too overwhelming for him. So this individual he directly murdered my son and indirectly murdered my only sibling.
And he's set to be out and serving under 20 years in prison. Violent.
He would have served about a total of should be about 18.5 years, which was a determinate sentence that he received after the ignorant judge kept convincing him to plead the case. He was going for first-degree murder, and the judge kept saying, "Mr. Gonzalez, you need to plead the case so you have a life. You still be a young man when you come out. Mr. Gonzalez, are you sure you don't want to plead the case?" 3 times, and the 3rd time he took the plea to a voluntary manslaughter, plus using a firearm, which, by the way, in California, any gun enhancement is no longer in the books because our insane Jerry Brown took that off. So gangs can freely use a gun, and they won't be punished for the additional charge for using a firearm.
Right. And, you know, people don't realize that all of these things add up. And here, you know, the judge is offering this man the plea. In fact, I just don't understand how the justice system is doing justice by families and individuals like you, and they're, you know, moving to allow these individuals that kind of latitude in these crimes. We see Jerry Brown, like you mentioned, softening sentencing. and now they've taken away, and we have Gavin Newsom, who's even worse, by the way. I really am concerned about Gavin Newsom, but we also have a situation where now our bail system has been taken away from us, something which I think was just a further push to allow criminals a lot of leniency. But let's get back to your son and the fact that this individual is a gang member, fled to Mexico. Now, was this person here illegally?
He apparently, I'm not so sure, I don't know exactly his story, but I know he has an alien number, which is a green card when you come here legally. So at one point he was here legally, and then 2 years, about 2 years, give or take, he was physically deported from our country, expelled back to Mexico, and he returned and killed my son. And this is where the problem is illegal aliens, and I'm not saying that every illegal alien is a criminal, but there's a good number of them that are. We shouldn't even house one. Why should we import crime? So these criminal illegal aliens are not being removed from our country, and they continue to victimize other people. I was his victim. Who's going to be the next victim? Who would like to sign up? Because I'll tell you, it's a hell on earth sentence for the family that follows me. I've been living with it for almost 17 years, and it changed my life completely.
Well, you know, I have a problem with people who come here illegally. Why? Because if you're willing to break one law, which is come here illegally, what else are you capable of doing? We don't know, right? This is why we have laws and processes. So, you know, on a
Erin, Erin, sorry for interrupting.
No.
I am a legal immigrant. I am a legal immigrant. My family fled Hungary during the Soviet Union takeover. We were in a refugee camp for about 9-10 months. We wanted to come to the United States, and because my father was originally born in Yugoslavia, they wanted us to stay. My mother said no. So they wouldn't allow us to go to the American Embassy to come to the United States. So we had choices of 3 countries, South Africa, Austria, or Brazil. We ended up immigrating to Brazil, where my parents applied 3 times to legally come to the United States. The first 2 times, the application lapsed. The 3rd time, we were successful. My father came with a job contract. We were fully vetted. We didn't come here through marrying a U.S. citizen, to jumping the fence, or overstaying our visa. We came here legally.
Legally. And that's the thing. That's the thing people are blowing out of proportion. Americans, most of them don't have a problem with people immigrating here legally. And in fact, we are safe harbor. My family, some of them came here escaping the Holocaust. You know, they came here illegally. And you know, this is America. This is the land of opportunity where you can come with nothing and make something of your life. And to have these individuals jumping fences, you know, going through tunnels and lying, getting in here as a refugee when they're not an actual refugee, like many families have been let in here through that process, which is a rightful process. It's just outrageous, and they put our country at risk. And people like you, who've now experienced this tragedy, you know, where do you stand on the wall, Agnes? I mean, I have a feeling I know, but where do you stand on Donald Trump and building the border wall?
Well, I stand for building the wall, securing our borders, and deporting every criminal illegal out of our country. And I do not agree with DACA. I am sorry that your parents put those children through, but the wall needs to be built. We need to find technology and hire more border patrol to man the wall to prevent anybody from coming here illegally. You look at this invasion headed to California again, to Arizona and Texas. This is not a refugee. This is they already said they're coming here for jobs. Jobs is not a reason for as a status to request refugee status. It is not, and we are not the babysitters of the destitute of the world. And this is what United States is becoming. They don't respect this country. They don't want to follow our culture. They don't want to follow, respect United States, respect Americans. They want to bring their dirtiness, their like
Corruption,
President Trump said,
corruption, lies, they're cheating to get here.
Yes, they want to
are
just bring their lawlessness into our country, and we cannot, as Americans, allow this to happen. Look at Hungary. The Prime Minister of Hungary, Viktor Orban, built 2 walls when the country was being invaded by Syrian refugees in 2015. It kept 95% of illegals out of the country. He said, you're not going to come in here to destroy our culture, to destroy who we are as a nation. And why are we allowing United States to be destroyed? But you know, Erin, the shameful thing is our country is beginning to be destroyed from within. You talk about Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, Kamala Harris, Gavin Newsom. All these politicians are working hard to destroy this country. And this is where the American people need to stand up and fight, because if not, this is going to be the socialist country that my family fled from.
Absolutely, and so many other families fled from, and in fact, my family fled from the Nazis. You know, and it's right here. It's on our soil, and it's very real, America. And I'm so glad that you came on the show and you speak so bluntly, Agnes, because people need to face the reality. They need to face what's really going on. And it's not enough to just talk, you know, about the solutions. The solutions are out there. People need to be writing their Congress members. People need to be calling. They need to be going to their Congress members' offices, talking with them, meeting with them, putting pressure, you know, anywhere that they can, and making sure that in elections, if you have somebody that's absolutely like one of these, you know, Newsom, Pelosi's, Maxine Waters, Kamala Harris's, you need to step up and get involved with the candidates who are going to be able to support people like Agnes and others by supporting the initiatives that are going to keep America safe and put American citizens first and citizens first, period, end of story, and you know, be a part of the solution for the problem.
Right. I agree, and I agree, and I want to share. I want to share with you that last week I was 6 of us, Angel Moms, were at the White House. We spoke with President Trump, had a very candid get together with him before he had that press conference. And he is so frustrated. My heart broke for the man. This man is fighting for this nation. He's a true patriot, a true American. And the hatred that's being exhibited and shown at President Trump is just distasteful. But President Trump said, you guys have no idea how bad things are here for me. And he's still holding on and still making America better. And people wake up, because pretty soon you're going to be in a country that my family fled from, that you're not going to have the freedom to do anything. And they're already announcing, these liberals, like Ocasio-Cortez, liberal nut, is saying that why does somebody need to have millions of dollars? Well, if you got an education or not, but you work and you saved your money, why should the government take that money away from you to give it to some lazy bum sitting on his couch all day long watching TV and fishing? Nobody. That's communism, people. Wake up. Please wake up. Talk to your congressman, to your congresswoman, and put pressure on them, saying, if you don't start paying attention and representing us that they do, then we're going to vote you out of office. Put pressure, because nobody is paying attention to some of the idiocracy, the stupid bills that's being passed.
Right.
Pay attention, people. Get involved. This is your nation, your country. If you don't fight now, you will not have a country for your children and for your grandchildren.
Amen. Amen. And, you know, we're seeing people in Congress push back against President Donald Trump and his declaring a national emergency at our southern border. You know, I want to remind people right now, right here and right now, President Barack Obama declared a national emergency at our borders. So did George W. Bush, and they both funded in the $1 billion number range our National Guard to secure our borders. This has been a long-standing national emergency that's gone off and on and off and on, and right now we're in a crisis. We're currently being invaded, and this is a big deal. Congress members, Agnes, I don't know where you stand, but Congress members who are currently pushing back against national security initiatives when we are in a national emergency situation are traitors. So what I was saying, Agnes, before the system went down, was that, you know, the Congress members, the people who are pushing back against the national security initiative, something that prior presidents have had to take action on, they're effectively traitors. They're putting their own political interests before the needs of the American people, and are furthering risk against community members, just like Agnes, just like you. I mean, it's outrageous, and I believe that they should be investigated, and really we need to look at why these individuals are putting our country at risk, and if they should be allowed to remain in office. It's a serious issue.
I completely agree with you 100%. They need to be investigated, and some of them need to be arrested. I do not understand how Maxine Waters was not arrested when she said that any Trump supporter that's in a restaurant, in a church, on the street, doesn't matter where, just harass the heck out of them. That woman, shame on her. What a disgusting creature she is. How dare she say that and put people in danger that are literally fighting for this country? If you're a traitor, that woman should be in prison right now. Why is it that nobody went and investigated and harassed? Look how many politicians were harassed in D.C. and locally. This is insane.
It is. It is insane. But I think we can't sit idle. And you speaking out about this, and I'm glad to hear you stand where I stand, and I don't believe we stand alone, Agnes. I really don't. In this fight for ending the corruption that's in our government, and in fact, that's legislating in D.C. We have that gal, Erin, and I'm not sure how to pronounce her name, but the point is she's in Minnesota calling for, making her anti-Semitic comments, and yet they're fighting to try to keep her on certain committees. Literally, she's sitting in Congress, and we have Jews who live here in the United States. Our whole country is being subjected to these individuals who don't look at America, the way that they should, the way that our founders intended, and they're actually legislating against the United States Constitution, and they're defiling and going against their oath that they took when they took office. So
yes, and you know what's even more offensive about that? I heard that when she swore in, took her oath of office, our oath of office to defend our Constitution, she put her hand on a Quran. On her, how is that possible?
Well, Sophia as well. I mean, she according to her religion, it's okay for her to lie.
It's not okay for us, and people like that you're not standing up for the for United States, for our Constitution. You should never hold office. That woman should be removed immediately because she's almost like a terrorist from within. How are we allowing this?
Well, and in fact, there was another organization who had pushed for her to be expelled. We have the ability through a process that literally our own Congress can expel members. In other words, if these members put a risk, such as herself, to our United States Constitution and should not be holding office, they can expel her. The problem is we don't have enough congressional members that have enough fortitude, or shall I say, there's so much corruption there, they're not taking the action they need to keep America safe and put Americans first and citizens first. It's outrageous. But what I'm glad about, Agnes, is that you're speaking up and you're speaking truth and you're sharing your story, because this can happen to anyone. And it will continue to if we don't make actual change.
I believe so. And I would hate to see anybody out there listening to have to stand next to the coffin or an urn of your child, of your mother, of your father, your sibling, because somebody that should have never been in this country killed your family member. And I hear the analogy, Erin, that people say, well, it could have been John that did it. It could have, but it wasn't.
Right.
And that's a very stupid analogy, because the fact is, if our borders would have been secured, my son would still be alive,
right,
and thousands of other Americans would still be alive. And I don't know how our government, our senators and Congress have allowed this insensitivity to go on and think of nothing more than our children just collateral damage. Oh well, it just happens. No, because if they wouldn't be able to come back and criminal illegal aliens would be deported, then our children, our family member would still be here. And we need to put pressure on them and fight. And I beg everybody listening, please don't give up on our country. Please don't give up on our president, because this man is fighting evil from within.
Absolutely.
And he's doing so much good for this country. And give him a chance. Except you don't have to like it. You know what's amazing, Erin? Everybody loved Trump before.
Mm-hmm.
And now that he's the president,
when he was a movie star, he was the greatest thing since sliced bread.
Yes. And now he's the worst thing ever. He is not the worst thing ever. This is fake media feeding ignorant minds with misinformation. And check out the facts, because he's a good man, a very compassionate, caring man. And
who you've met. You speak truth from personal experience, and
I've met him many times, and I can say it. Yes.
And as people, I think people especially who've been through traumatic experiences like yourself, and good from evil. You've seen it, stared it right in the eyes, and you've faced it, and you've met President Trump. And what you're saying to me is that he's sincere and his concern for our American citizens and our children and our families. And I mean, it's a testament. You, a regular woman, a person, a community member, being invited to the White House to talk about this tough issue, that's evidence that he cares.
Absolutely. And I stand with him 100%. And I know there's a big wave of people wanting to bring him down and not reelect him. We're going to fight to reelect him, because this country deserves a chance. And I am not, Erin, when I took my oath of citizenship, when I became a U.S. citizen, part of it was
to defend right now, because I can think about this and I can just imagine you with your excitement. Becoming a U.S. citizen. Go on.
And I'll tell you why. When I was, before I became an American citizen, I was stateless. My family was stateless, meaning that the Hungarian government took our citizenship away because we escaped from Hungary. So when we came here, we had no country that we belonged to. Do you see the difference? This is my home, my country. And when I took that oath to defend my country against foreign and domestic invaders, that is exactly what I'm doing. I respect and honor this country. I stand up for my country. And even at my age, I would fight. I would go on the front line to fight for this country, to defend it. And I wish more Americans would do that. Well, and young people listening, if you think that socialism is a good thing, think about, put your cell phone down and let's all sell your cell phones and give all that money to those that are sitting at home that have less than you. That's what socialism is. Your liberty is taken away from you. You're not going to get anything free. Your liberty, your peace is going to be taken away, and somebody's going to be dictating to you what you're going to do it, when, and how. That's socialism.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. It's easy to think about it in a Bernie sense of everybody getting free things, but here's the deal, is government can't give away something that it already hasn't taken from somebody else.
That's right.
And, it is a very real reality, and living in the prosperity that we have here in America, it's all too easy to think that it's a pretty thing, that it's a great thing. But when we've seen socialism and communism in other countries, we can see the devastation it brings. It's never worked.
Yes.
And as we see Venezuela coming out of this situation that it's coming out of, we should have a greater appreciation for the liberties and the freedoms we have here in the United States. And do some restoration work and build the wall, right, Agnes?
Build that wall. And think about it, people. If once all that's taken away from those that worked hard, that acquired some wealth or a lot of wealth, once all that money is gone, then what? Then you're going to become starving in the street, eating grass, eating whatever you can put your hands on, like people are in Venezuela, the revolt. Notice that Venezuela, beautiful country, as I understand. I've never been there, but people are not going to Venezuela. They are fleeing because of the conditions. Nobody is going to a socialist country because it's not good. So think about that. Do your diligence, people. Read up on history, how Europe used to be, how all the communists, the Soviet Union took over, how Nazis, how thousands, they take your guns and they kill you. How, just do your history. Just listen, just pay attention, because it's not as easy and pretty as it sounds. Oh yeah, they're gonna take money from you and give me part of your money. That's good. No, it isn't like that. They're going to keep the money and you're still going to have nothing.
Right. That's the eventuality of it. Absolutely. And in fact, when we have a government is okay, we saw yesterday of our own birthed babies from botched abortions. You know, if these people are so willing to allow full-term babies to be murdered after an accidental birth, what other lands will they go to?
Exactly. It'll be another mass murder in mass graves like they did in Europe during Auschwitz.
I don't mean to be, sound extremist, but think about this, ladies and gentlemen. Think about the realities, the push for the gun control, the infanticide. It's the eugenics, not concerned about borders, wanting open borders, globalism, all of these issues, and certainly the disgust that came from the left when you were invited to the event, Agnes, that was a real reality. I was taken aback by the media who were surprised that President Trump let you have a voice. Did you see that? I saw that.
That day, I was traveling back home, so I didn't watch any news at all because we left the White House. Then the press conference, and had several interviews at the Rose Garden, just outside the Oval Office. And then I went to the hotel, got my luggage, went to the airport.
Didn't have time to watch it, but that's what the reality was.
But I kept hearing. I kept hearing people say, "Oh my God, you're all over the news. You're all over." I couldn't see anything, but it is disgusting how disappointed and how even from within they try to keep us away from President Trump. President Trump has vowed to build a wall to secure our borders because he himself recognized the invasion that's happening and the mockery. And do people think that these people that are breaking down the walls to go into Mexico and trying to force themselves into our country, does anybody really think that they're going to respect our laws? No, they're going to be stealing, raping, most of them. They're going to be doing whatever they can to get away. There's not enough jobs for all those people.
Right. Well, we have record level of low unemployment, and that's going to create a competitive job atmosphere for our own U.S. citizens and those people who are here legally.
Yes.
And we're going to have a strong economy. And as we build the wall, that's going to make for even stronger economy. And you're correct. There isn't room for people here illegally to retain jobs or to have jobs illegally. That's not how it works. But I don't think anybody is saying that we don't want individuals to come into this country. We do. We want legal immigrants or legal workers. And I think that's another conversation we need to talk about just for a moment here, is that Congress has been kicking the can on the immigration issue for a very long time, and they've had years, decades in fact, to find solutions for more legal workers from and through Mexico, and to enhance that program to be able to have individuals working here. We already have some. We already have many. But there are solutions that can be had, and Congress isn't taking action. They're choosing not to.
they are not taking action, and they are the ones to be blamed for this insanity. And my heart goes out to these poverty-stricken countries that are trying to come to United States. But let's be very candid here. There are, I don't think our government even knows how many millions of illegal aliens presently in our country. And I know many of them, and they have been here 20, 30 years and still cannot master the English language. What kind of work are they going to be doing? They can't read and write in their own language. And most of these people coming here, they are fairly uneducated or quite uneducated. What are they going to do here? Well, they're not going to be able to, if they haven't learned their own language of their country where they were born, they're not going to learn English. They're not going to serve any good purpose here in this country. There's, like somebody said, there's only so much dishwashers and house cleaning and babysitters. What are we going to do with this excess? And think about this, and what are we doing with the elderly? They're going to become a huge financial burden on our taxpayers. As it is, even the younger ones, they go and draw schools, public assistance, low housing. Mm-hmm. You know, it's not fair.
Right, right. Well, and you bring up a very good point, Agnes, in the public services, because the children who come here are protected on federal programs, or who are brought here, shall I say, are covered under federal programs. They utilize schools, English as a second language, programs, ESL, as many people know. We spend literally billions of dollars on these subsidy programs, but the ones that come here as refugees, they're actually getting access to SSI because they don't speak English. And these are funds that citizens have paid into for generations. And in fact, they're bleeding our system dry. And it's a concern. And I don't believe anybody that we don't want to help actual individuals in refugee type situations or in child trafficking issue situations, but it's just a matter of what the help looks like and what is Congress doing to fix it. Last I checked, they aren't, and they would just rather keep importing more illegal boats. And in the case of California, where I live, that's becoming a very big issue. They're now impacting our elections, so I hear. So, you know, it's with the census coming up, it's going to even become a larger issue. It's something that's a very big reality. And I think President Donald Trump, as you say, Agnes, he's trying to make a positive impact. And he's really trying to work for the American people. And people need to give him a chance. And he wants solutions. He's put things before Congress and said, let's come to the table multiple times. And Congress keeps pushing back. But it's because of people like you, Agnes, that we're able to keep this conversation going, because the reality is we don't want more people to die.
No,
we want
we don't.
To be living in secure communities, to have strong economies so they can flourish and have the opportunity for life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, right? The American dream.
Absolutely. And you know, you're absolutely right. And what about the millions and millions of dollars that United States gives to these poor countries as humanitarian aid?
Absolutely.
What's being done with that money? Keep that money and build a wall. You can't keep your people in your country and having them flood our borders, attack our border patrol. These men and women want to go home to their families at the end of the day, and they don't want to go home in a coffin and or be, you know, blinded or seriously hurt. Right. You know, this is why we need to shut this border. Look, we have a sensible immigration system. Mm-hmm. You apply, you go through the vetting process, full background investigation, full medical. They go through the process. If this is so important for you to come here, then do it like my family did. Don't just come and push yourself through my front door and say, I like your bedroom. I'm going to live in your bedroom now. And you're going to buy me food and you're going to pay for the water, the electricity, the everything else. No, it doesn't work like that. But here in California, we have no choice. You look at it. Now California, we lost in our income tax. We can't deduct California property tax anymore. And that's probably why Gavin Newsom is giving $25 million to illegal aliens to help with their legal fund to defend themselves. What an insanity is that?
Well,
I don't want my dollars going there.
The other thing is that money that you're talking about right there is also going for housing and other things. We actually had an organization in San Diego who were adding to our RAN Action Fund and our Restoring America Now project. They literally reached out for some assistance financially from those monies that were going to be given out for, you know, the needy. And they were told, no, those monies are only for people who've come here from Central America.
See? Yeah. It's not right. This is
dollars being put towards individuals who are here from Central America illegally.
Yeah, and where is the money for people that have lost their loved ones and who, let's say, a husband is killed by an illegal alien? How is that wife gonna live from that point on to bury her husband, to support her family, pay the mortgage, and bring up the kids and put them through college? There is no help for that widow.
Right, right.
But then we give to total strangers that invade our country. This has to stop. People need to start waking up.
Right. And again, I think it's to weaken our economy, to weaken our communities, and to bleed our finances dry. And when we should be putting Americans first, our citizens first, our veterans first, our homeless first, and our communities and our family, public safety is a priority. All of these things should be coming first before we take care of other individuals.
Absolutely. How about putting some of that money towards better health care for the elderly, those people that already work, they are senior citizens? How about the veterans? How about the impoverished children that live in our country? Why should my tax dollars...
We have tens of thousands of homeless children in California alone.
Right.
Children who, by the way, I was reading a report, a homeless mother had several homeless children with her, and because her children had some issues getting to school, the mother was prosecuted by Kamala Harris, literally. And you know, what happened to the fact that, you know, our family should be put first? You know, it's just terrible. It's terrible to think that they'll go to the rescue of all of these other individuals, but yet our own communities can't get the resources and help that they need to get a hand up, and our own children are suffering.
Yes, and the veterans, you know, there's just so many issues that we need to take care of in our own country. Humanitarian issues here too. Why are we always? The United States is the most giving, compassionate country in the world, but when United States has difficulties like these, what other countries in the world do you see providing any assistance to us at all?
Right, absolutely. Well, you know, that is a very good question. We're getting here to the end of your interview, Agnes. What last few words do you have for people listening here today to your story?
I wanted to tell everybody thank you for the continued support. I really, really appreciate each and every one of you. And I ask you and beg you, please do not back away from President Trump. He is a great president. He's a good man, a good-hearted man, has the best interest of this country at heart. And give the man a chance, because has done some tremendous improvement in this country already. And God bless everyone. Thank you.
Thank you for coming on the Erin Cruz Show, Agnes. Hopefully we'll hear from you at a later date, and you can share with us some improvements that you've seen.
Anytime. Call on me anytime you would like, Erin. It's a pleasure talking to you. Thank you.
Absolutely. God bless you. Thank you, Agnes.
God bless you. Thank you.
Today is the greatest day I've ever known.
Next on the Erin Cruz show is Angie Morgan Vargas. She is another angel mom. She's fighting. She's on the forefront of that battlefield. We have all of these women fighting for Americans, fighting for our citizens, fighting for safe communities, strong national security. Many of these moms have been up with the president, speaking with him, sharing with them up there in D.C., the District of Corruption, which is now being drained, that swamp is being drained, but sharing with our president the stories, the impact that illegal immigration has had on their own lives, on their own families, and it doesn't stop there. Has made impact with their communities. And I don't know about you, but when something like this happens to somebody else, I feel like it's happened to me, that we have a responsibility and a duty to protect our communities, our family members, those people who are United States citizens, our countrymen, from future hurt, from future pain, and from the future risks that we might have as a result of not securing our border. So please share her story with everybody that you know and keep the message alive. We need strong national security, border security to protect our country, our children, and our communities. Please sit back and hear what this beautiful, wonderful woman has to say. Hello and welcome back to the Erin Cruz Show. We have a very special guest on with us right now. Her name is Angie Morgan Vargas. She is an angel mom. Her son, Ruben, 13 years old, was brutally killed by an individual who, well, we'll let Angie tell the story. Angie, welcome to the Erin Cruz Show. Thank you for coming on with us today.
Thank you for having me.
You know, tell us a little bit about what happened to your family.
On December 29th, I got the call that no mom ever wants to receive. I got the call that my 13-year-old son had just been shot and that I need to get to the hospital. When I got to the hospital, they wouldn't let me see him. They said anybody but the mother could go in to identify him. That they had a little boy between, I was praying that it wasn't my son because they kept saying it was a little boy between 16 and 18. And I knew that couldn't be my baby.
Right.
And, but they needed somebody else to come. I ended up calling one of Ruben's uncles from King City, and he came, and he was the first one to actually go in and identify Ruben.
Oh.
And when he came out, he was crying and he was trembling, and he told me not to go in, just to remember Ruben the way he was. And then my husband got to go in, which my husband was his stepfather, but he helped me raise Ruben when I met my husband when Ruben was 2 months old.
Oh, wow. So he was his father. He was his father.
His father had already died.
Right.
Years before Ruben. They're buried together, actually, in King City.
Mm.
But my husband went in, and then he came out crying, and he told me not to go in. But I couldn't just not go in. This was my baby they were talking about. The doctor came up to me finally, and he said, he asked me, did Ruben have any enemies? And I said, oh no, Ruben didn't have any enemies because everybody loved him. He was so funny. He was a funny kid. He would make you laugh. He goes, well, it's like they grabbed him from the shoulder and shot him in the back of the head. Point blank.
Brutal.
From that moment.
Just
from that
so
moment,
brutal.
I think I froze. You know, because I didn't want him to suffer. And that's the first thing I asked the doctor. Did he suffer? You know that when he got shot, he went into like sleep mode. So he didn't feel it. But they were going to clean him up and let me go see him because they didn't believe that he would live through the night. But if he did live through the night, that he would be a vegetable for the rest of his life.
Mm.
So I got to go in, as I was walking towards where they had him, the room, his friends that knew him and loved him were already standing outside the door waiting for me to go in.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. As I walked in, I could see my baby on the table, and he had like tubes everywhere, and he had like a bandage all over his head. I could see the blood. They told me as I walked closer to my baby that he was still going to have to take him off the machine because that was the only thing keeping him alive, and he was already dying. Ruben had, where they shot him, I guess the bullet lodged in there, and it was his eye. His left eye was almost hanging out. I asked the doctors if I could give them goodbye before they cut it off, and they let me. And I could see a little teardrop fall out of his good eye, and they turned it off. I think I walked in a daze for a long time. It was hard. I still had to go home and tell my mother, because I sat there with Ruben. And I know it's crazy, but I sat there until the mortuary picked him up because I was scared that they were going to take his parts. Because that's all they kept asking me all night, if I would donate his parts.
Oh, jeez. Oh, wow.
And I told them that, I kept telling them no and no and no, but they just kept insisting that I donate his parts, and I said no. So I sat there with my baby until the mortuary picked him up. I just didn't want them to hurt him anymore.
Right. Right.
But I still had to go home and tell my mother.
No.
Because I hadn't told my mother anything yet. I hadn't called her to let her know what happened to him. Because she helped me raise him, and between both of us, we took care of him. And if he wasn't at her house, he was at my house, and that's the way it was. And I didn't know what I was going to tell my mom when I got there. But when I got there, she had already found out. She was crazy. She was like a crazy wild woman, hitting her head against the wall and on the ground and pulling her hair. And screaming like a wild woman. It was a long weekend because it was the holidays. It was, right after Christmas and right before New Year's. And they almost took a week to give me the body.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So when I finally got to see my baby, well, when I was still in the hospital, I did ask the doctor, because I wasn't sure, this little boy looked, he was so swollen. I just wanted to make sure he was my baby, because I knew every cut he had, every scar he had, everything about him. I asked if I could pull up the covers so I could see if he was really mine. And as soon as I seen his little fingers, I knew he was my baby. Because he chewed his nails. That was tough. That was really tough on me. I finally got home, and I like I tell you, my mom was going crazy. And it was such a long weekend. And when I finally got to see my baby, that was my baby in that coffin. He wasn't swollen anymore. He wasn't swollen. He was just my little boy there, like he was asleep. I wanted to go with him so bad. I would pray to the Lord to take me. Please take me, because I just couldn't bear thinking of living without him. But I had 2 other children at the time, which is my daughter Esther, and I had she was 7 when he died, and my son Fernando was 3.
So very young, very, very young.
They were babies. They were all babies, yeah. And Esther took it on. I can tell you, Esther was very close to him, because that's one thing Ruben loved. He loved children. Like nobody hurting children. He loved his siblings so much, and every picture I have is him hugging Esther, and he loved her so much. And
Big brother. Big brother.
When I had to tell Esther about Ruben, she took it hard. And I can tell you right now, she's 35 years old, and she can still cry for him like she did yesterday. We do. We both do. Because it's hard to believe that anybody could hurt a little boy like that and not even care.
So brutally.
Yeah,
brutally.
It was brutal. It was brutal.
So
But, you know, the kids in Salinas, they were scared. Everybody was scared because in those days, drive-by shootings were like very starting to happen, and people would still walk in the street without being scared.
Right.
But when Ruben died,
It's 30 years ago, right? It's about 30 years ago.
It's going to be 29. It'll be 29 in December.
Okay,
Yeah, so, you know, back then it was easy for the kids, you know, to walk.
Life was a lot better and a lot easier, right? I mean, I played outside as a child.
It's like everybody was scared. Everybody was scared to even do anything. And then things started getting worse and worse here in Salinas.
So.
Well, it took a whole year before I actually found out who did it. And they didn't even call me. I just seen it on the news. It's like,
Oh my gosh, they didn't even let you know?
no, they didn't let me know. They didn't call me or nothing. They didn't let me know. And the only reason I found out is because I heard an interview that they had a suspect for Ruben's death. And his name was Ezekiel Mariscal. And all they said it was that he was from Huntington Park. He was here in Salinas visiting family for the holidays when he decided to do a killing. It was just my baby in the wrong place at the wrong time.
Well, I just can't imagine to see that, to hear this news on the television. It just seems so irresponsible of the authorities to not let you know they had a suspect. So now, what happened after that? Was he then he went from being a suspect to they end up trying him for murder? I mean, what transpired after that? Did you become involved?
After that, at this point, I still didn't know that he was actually an illegal. All I knew is that he was a known gang member, and that they called him Boxer. They called him Boxer, and his brother, they called him Little Boxer. And they were from Huntington Park. I didn't know nothing at all until, I would say, 3 years later after that, they got word. Well, one of the detectives on Ruben's case, he was the first one to arrive on the scene. His name was Leonard Wilson, and he told me that seeing Ruben on the street like that, it just blew his mind, and he had to do something about it. So he
praise the Lord, he really felt the drive.
Yes,
you know.
Yes. He actually wrote a letter to America's Most Wanted, and they made fun of him. They told him that it wasn't even worth doing because you were never going to come, that the story wasn't good enough, that he was determined, even if they were laughing at him, and he sent it off. And I got a call from one of the reporters, Donna Brandt, and she came to Salinas, and they reenacted the crime. And that's when I got to meet Leonard Wilson. He came up to me and introduced himself, and he told me that he was the detective on the scene, and he couldn't sleep just thinking about what had happened to Ruben, and that he was glad that they were finally going to do something.
I mean, I have tears in my eyes thinking about, you know, we hear a lot of anti-police, you know, rhetoric and things, and there are men just like this police officer, this detective out there fighting to find solutions, find, you know, these criminals. and they can't sleep because of what they've seen, and they don't want it ever to happen again, and they're advocating for people like you, you know, moms who can't ever get your son back, and for him to care enough like that, it's just so touching, because we forget the human element of the people that work on these senseless crimes every single day, and how easy it might be to give up. You know, needle in the haystack, but the fact that he knew that this was your son, that Ruben was your baby there, and he wouldn't let it go.
What got me more is that he told me, and I didn't know this is almost 4 years later, that they actually stopped Mariscal 2 hours before he killed Ruben. They were already watching him. They were right behind him. I guess it upset me because, you know, they should have not let him go. If they already had him, you know, if they would have not let him go, my baby would still be alive. Well, this kid actually, after he killed Ruben, he started running back and forth from L.A. to Nevada to Mexico. His family actually was escorted and moved to Nevada for their own protection. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
For their own protection. So they were all moved to Nevada.
Oh my gosh.
And the only reason they knew he was coming back was because the brother, the little boxer, he committed a murder in Nevada.
Oh my goodness.
And they knew that boxer was coming back and forth trying to get to his brother. I guess he was trying to take him back to Mexico or something.
Wow.
Yeah, so they finally aired America's Most Wanted. And some people say it wasn't America's Most Wanted that broke it, but I think it was, because that's when they got more word that people was calling in and saying where he was, and
really starting to make action on the case.
Yeah. Well, and oh my God, my brain of thought just took off.
No, it's okay. You were talking about how this gentleman, this not even gentleman, this murderer was going to and from Nevada, and America Most Wanted had put out their story.
That's when the detectives here found out more or less where he was. They went to San Diego. They went to the Foreign Prosecution Unit that was in San Diego. I don't know if it's still there because they never answered the phone. But they're the ones that actually went into Mexico, put the warrant for his arrest, and he was apprehended on July 13th, 1994, the same year America's Most Wanted came up. Because America's Most Wanted aired on February the 5th, 94.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. That's why I always give credit to America's Most Wanted, because it had to have been them.
Right. Getting out the word, so important. So now, what happened after that? I mean, in terms of him sitting trial, and you mentioned he served time in Mexico.
Yes. He actually, he was sentenced to 20 years without any parole. But I don't know if, because everybody kept telling me, you know, I wanted him extradited over here. And they kept telling me, no. The cops and the detectives, everybody just told me to leave him in Mexico, that it would be hard labor in Mexico. And here, you still have to go through the court process, and he might even walk because nobody was going to testify against him.
That's just horrific. That's just horrific. It's horrific.
Yeah.
It's just horrific. It's beyond words. I can't say anything else. It just makes me think, you know, our justice system is that frail that it can't stand to ensure that murderers actually serve their time, and that justice would be served. And Mexico could do a better job. Insanity, just flat out insanity. So it's tragic. It's tragic that that's the reality. So now he served 20 years in Mexico. for the death of your the murder and the death of your son, Ruben. And we talked in the pre-interview about the fact that you're not sure, you believe that he still is in Mexico.
No, I don't believe. I think he could be here because
he could be here.
It's so easy for them to go and come back or commit a crime and go to another city, just change their names, and that's it. And here in California, they're not even checking that anymore. They don't even care.
And you tried to follow up on this, correct? You followed up with San Diego to tell us about that, because this is, people are losing track of the fact that this, and because the media is not reporting and the media is not doing their jobs to get people the information they need. People don't understand that your son was murdered. He served time in Mexico. You don't even know where that murderer is at, if he's here in the United States or not, and that you can't get answers.
I can't. I tell you, I called ICE and they told me that there was nothing they could do because they already checked the records. He hasn't been caught, so they don't know if he could be here or not.
And then you called San Diego.
And they don't answer their phones.
Right. And what department was that you called?
The Foreign Prosecution Unit.
Right. So, for me as a mom, my kids are grown, but for me as a mom, just thinking about the horrors of you wondering if this man is around, that to me is just unsettling, and that you can't get any answers from authorities on, whether or not they think it's a risk that he could be here in the United States. It's maddening.
Yeah.
It's maddening. So now you've really been on this fight and battlefront in terms of illegal aliens and our border wall, and you went to see the President of the United States, Donald Trump. Tell us a little bit about that, because we heard your story right now. It's so heartbreaking, but you're fighting. You're fighting for other families.
This has been a very hard fight from the beginning when I first found out that he was illegal. It's like nobody wants to hear it. I've gone to Washington and testified before Congress. And that lady from Texas, Jackson Lee, Sheila Jackson Lee, she kept getting up and calling him, telling us that we were lying, and calling us racist. And she would get up and go use the phone and then come back, and she wouldn't tolerate racism in her room, and it was like she treated us like crap.
It's not about race. It has to do with legal and illegal. It has to do with citizens of the United States.
One of the times that I went to go talk to our congressmen, our senators, I took one of Ruben's pictures, and they refused to let me in the building with his pictures. This last time I went, I was amazed that they actually let people carry pictures in there, but when I went in the 90s, they wouldn't even let Ruben's picture inside the hallways.
It's just shameful. It's just shameful. It's disgusting. It's absolutely just disgusting. I'll tell you, I have right here on the screen, because we're talking over the phone, and I have a picture of you and your beautiful son there, side by side, and why wouldn't you want to see faces of the beautiful children that we've lost? And why? Because you want to protect those who are criminals. You want to protect your status quo. These politicians want nothing more than to stay in power and keep their money, power, and control. And it's heartbreaking. But we can't let them to continue to bully the citizenry. That you and your son are right here, right in the forefront of the fight to protect our families. Yes.
We've been here for a long time
fighting
the forefront.
And you know what? And you've been up there talking to President Donald Trump, and I'm just you're such a brave woman. You have so much courage, and And you're a voice that needs to be heard loud and clear across America.
I live in Monterey County, very liberal county. They don't even, the media, they won't even look at me. They treat me like poison. They all do. Lately, I've been talking to like you, and I got interviewed a couple of days ago by Frank George at the radio station. And I've got, other people that are conservative that actually talk to me from out of Salinas, Monterey County. These people treat me like I'm poisoned.
Well, you're not poisoned. You know what? You're a mother who is speaking out about a real issue, and you're not alone. As we've seen, many of the angel moms on the media and on the news, up and talking with President Donald Trump, the Rose Garden. I'm hoping many more. I hope that there's never another mother that's impacted. But what I'd like to see is if there are parents out there whose lives have been impacted in the past by illegal aliens, and you've lost children, especially mothers, to contact the angel moms and get involved in the fight for the future of our country, because we have to stand together. We don't need to lose one more child to senseless crimes committed by people who don't even have the right to be here in our country. It has to stop. So I want to ask you a question. I know it sounds light, but where do you stand on the border wall issue and the push of President Donald Trump to get that wall built?
I can't believe how these people are fighting to protect us. They don't want to protect us. It's like, oh my God, I've been fighting this battle for so long, and it's because I still got children that I want to survive, I got grandchildren.
You have grandchildren.
I'm scared for them. I'm scared for their life. And for my older kids, it's like their future. And it's like, why do they have to compete with people that are here in the country illegally? They shouldn't have to. This is their country. This is where they were born. I want to see the America that I grew up in, not the one that the Democrats, liberals are making this into.
Right.
Everything is so backwards nowadays.
Right.
Most people have more rights than we do.
And that is very evident. That's really quite evident. I was seeing that President Donald Trump is getting a lot of pushback on the wall from the Democrats, but in fact, President Barack Obama, when he was in the Senate in Illinois, actually voted in favor of building a wall. In fact, when President Barack Obama was a president of the United States, he funded $1 billion or more to put National Guard on our border in a national emergency situation. So what I'm seeing is a mass movement for globalism, open borders, and something that stands against what even the Democrats of old or even the progressives of old were okay with at one time. And I believe it's all because actually the work will get done. In the past, the border wall has been funded, but the work never got done. So, in many cases, I know parts of it have gotten done, but not what we've actually funded. So, there's a real big issue going on right now. And again, I don't think it has much to do with anything but money, power, and control. And unfortunately, the people who are losing are the regular people like me and you, Angie.
Yes, because this is what I told them when I went to Washington last week. These people are put into our communities. Our communities, not theirs. Ours. They don't know what we're going through, what we're being cheated out of, and the competition on everything, all levels of everything in life.
Right.
We have to compete with these people that don't even have the right to be here in the first place.
Right. Right. And the senseless crimes they're committing, because, I'm not saying that everybody who's here, some individuals, children who've been brought here by other people, and they're still here. I'm not saying that those are not necessarily bad people, but there are people who have come here illegally. They've broken the law to get here. They're here. If they'll do that, if they'll break the law to get here, what else will they do? What else will they do? And that's my concern, and the breakdown of the American family and the communities that are impacted and all the costs associated with the illegal immigration. It's a concern.
Yeah.
It's safety. So,
can I just say something real quick about my president? I love my president.
Oh, I will. Hey, let's talk about something great. I love that. Say that again. Say that again. I love my president.
I love my president.
I love my president.
When he first came out and said all those things that he did about, Mexico City and its worst, I jumped out of my chair because he's the first man to have the guts to say it. And
Yes.
Everybody, my friends, people I know, they all will say it, but they're too scared to say it out loud,
Right.
And when he said it, I wish I could have found a way just to go and tell him, but then I heard Mr. Shaw from L.A. said it on his radio station that he supported Donald Trump,
Right.
the president, because of his son. And I was so thankful that Mr. Shaw had the guts and the radio station to say it.
Right.
When Mr. Shaw had Donald Trump, the candidate, show up in L.A., I was called to show up. Because I live, 4 or 5 hours from L.A.?
Right.
I couldn't do it, so I begged my sister who lives in Santa Ana, Orange County,
Yes.
if she would go and represent my family. She had just gotten out of the hospital, and she actually got up and went.
Oh, wow.
Yes. And about last week, I finally found pictures that prove that she actually met Donald Trump, and she has pictures. That's one thing I just barely got my first picture. Well, I haven't got it yet, but I'll get it. And it's with a group. She has a picture by herself with Donald Trump.
Oh, my gosh. That lucky woman.
Yeah. We were behind him 100% all the time while he was running. He actually stood in Costa Mesa, and you'll either find the picture online. He was in Costa Mesa, and he brought up the angel families, and somebody walked up to the stage with my son Ruben's banner, and Ruben's banner is right behind Donald Trump, and there's a picture of it. Yes.
Wow.
And the next week, I went to Anaheim, and that's where I got to meet the candidate, Donald Trump.
Wow.
He held my hand, and he told me he was sorry about my son, and that everything was going to be okay. And
It will be. It will be.
I still believe him. He's done more than anybody else has done to bring this to the forefront.
Yes.
I don't care what they say, that he lied. He didn't lie. Politicians are politicians, and Mr. Trump is trying his best. There's just too much swamp.
Right. I agree with that. He's been blocked every chance that they can block him, and we have to support our president, and we need to be loud and very clear about what we want.
That's all. That he's done a lot more than anybody else on the immigration issue, and I still believe that he's going to do something.
Well, I'm pushing for it. I know you're pushing for it. Many Americans right now, they're talking about it. They need to keep pushing it at Congress. Too long has Congress been kicking the immigration can, the national security can, all of these cans. You know what? It's about time we start doing and taking action for the American people, and that's what President Donald Trump is trying to do. We need to make sure and support him for 2020 so he can finish the job that he's been set forth to do. And it's people like you who are able to get on the airwaves and share your story, which are going to, that's going to make impact with real people, because your situation is not a racial issue. It's a right and wrong issue. It's something where parents can relate, especially parents who have lived near gang communities, people from the inner cities. They better be waking up, because the stuff is spreading. It's not just in the inner cities anymore. It's in rural areas. Gangs are spreading like wildfire. Here in Coachella Valley, where I live, Gangs are rampant. They're rampant, and they don't want to. People don't talk about it, but they're here. They're here. As a matter of fact, we had a martial arts instructor, one of the premier martial arts instructors of our day. He was attacked and murdered. And to murder this man would have been, it must have taken many people. I don't doubt it wasn't gangs. They're still looking for the killers. You know, it doesn't have to be a child. And there are evil people out there, and we need to continue to fight and get rid of the illegal aliens that are here.
One of the things that I'd like to, talk on your show right now.
Yes.
We have, here in Monterey County, we have a lot of unsolved cases, cold
Oh.
cases. A lot.
I would love to talk about that, yes.
To me, it's like they have to be illegal.
I mean, how else?
How is it that you can't find a murderer or any traces of them?
Mm-hmm.
Because all these people come, they commit a crime, they move to another city, change their names. It's that easy.
Mm-hmm.
They go back to Mexico, wait a while before it calm down. They can come back and go to another state, another city. And who's going to know what they did?
Right. I mean, there's no other, I don't know.
A lot of cold cases. I have so many mothers here in Monterey County that don't even know who killed their children.
Oh.
And nobody's even investigating.
Well, you know what? Have you thought, I mean, I think we need to talk, this is a real conversation right here, because I just spoke to another gal, not an angel mom, somebody else who was telling me about a crime that happened up in Trinity County, that there's corruption going on and the police aren't even looking at it or investigating them. And this is there's a serious problem in America when we cannot get our law enforcement to take seriously some of the issues that are going on right now. And I'm not saying that all law enforcement is bad, but when they start turning cheeks at some of these things, you have to wonder why.
Yes. You have to wonder why.
So
I always tell everybody, it's all about the money. Mm-hmm. It's all about the money. It's like, do they really want to solve the cases? Do they really want to stop the violence? I mean, it's more money in their pocket, because all you have to do is say, oh, well, we have a bad problem, and send us money.
Budgets.
And nothing is being done.
Budgets. But we see that, like in your particular case, you had this guy this detective who wouldn't let go. There are good detectives, and many, many, many good detectives and police officers out there, and it's not just a job for them. They're in it for a reason. This is their calling, and I just would like to see that. In your case with Monterey County, that these cases would be taken seriously, that the real resources would be put. You don't know, there could be human trafficking rings, there could be drug rings, there could gang related issues that are tied to illegals. Then this is why they're not finding them. I mean, what is the solution? One of them is to make sure that we get the wall right, and to enforce immigration.
I mean, at the beginning, and everybody said, well, the wall's not going to work, because they can
walls work.
I go, yes, they can, but it's the beginning. It's the beginning to something. And from there, let's start doing the enforcement inside. They commit crimes, deport them. We don't need them here. We have our own problems here. Yeah.
Interior enforcement, all of it,
Yeah.
You got to start somewhere.
Not just the wall. Not just the wall. I mean, these people get freebies. They get a lot of freebies that I have to work, and I don't qualify for anything, and neither do my children.
Yes.
And all they have to say is they're migrants. Oh my God, they're migrants. They get everything double.
Yes, we need to stop giving out the freebies. I agree with you wholeheartedly. There, 100%.
I've seen it with my own children. In the school system, where if you're not a migrant worker, well, you don't really qualify for anything. They're the ones that used to qualify for just the field trips and all the freebies, and take them here, take them there, and it's like, our kids, if you don't work in the field, too bad for you. Yeah, to me that's reverse discrimination.
Oh, yeah, it's really a difficult thing. So now, back to the other issue that you brought up, which I think we should talk about a little bit. You say that a lot of parents have unsolved cases surrounding child deaths. Are these individuals who might live near gangs, or are they just, is this like a, I mean, is missing, or are these actual children who are victims, you know, of brutal crimes?
I would say that half of them would be innocent. Because I know a few ladies that will tell you that their kids were innocent or whatever, but, you know, you can tell by the way they dressed or the way they acted that they weren't that innocent, you know?
Right, right. They could be involved in gangs or something, right?
Yeah. But I would say that a lot of, like, we did have one shooting. It was a shooting of North and South, which here in Monterey County, believe it or not, South would be Mexican-born, and North would be American-born, and those are the ones that are shooting each other off. Yeah. So it's really weird. Here, being in Monterey County, where it's supposed to be the agriculture of the world, you know, the land of capital of the world.
Right.
That's our problem here. You know, they cater more to the farm workers than to the kids that are actually born here.
Right. Well, you know what? I believe in citizens first, America first, and we need to put our own families first. We have a lot of issues here, and especially in California, that need resolved. And you know, it's something that I understand. We need workers and all of that, but we have to deal with the illegal immigrant, or I don't even like, not even illegal immigrant, illegal alien issue. Start cracking down on the crimes and really making impact at the drug-related, gang-related situations in some of these areas, because it is impacting our citizens and our communities. And you know, you can't just kick it aside, because it seems to be, like I said earlier, spreading. And it's costing us a lot of money as a state and as a nation, and more than the money that it's costing us innocent lives, like your son.
Well, that's what I was going to tell you about. That's why I went to the North and the South, because there was a shooting by a park. It was actually a small little park in a small area community, and the North and the South were fighting each other in the park, and one of the bullets went through one of the apartment complexes, and a 6-year-old little boy was hit in the heart.
Oh.
It went through the wall. Wow. Yeah. Well, it turned out that the guy that actually did the shooting, that owned the gun that killed the little boy, was actually an illegal.
Just terrible.
Yeah.
Just terrible.
Yeah, that was sad. Yeah, that was really, really sad.
I mean, it's sad. It's sad that this baby had to lose their life over gang issues. You know, really, really sad. Well, you know, hopefully with President Donald Trump, I want to take this up a notch. President Donald Trump taking action and putting national security first as a top priority, which is his job, taking it seriously and taking action on the wall, we will see a start to lower, lesser crime happening, and with interior enforcement, some impact made with illegal immigrants, or illegal aliens, as I like to call them. Now, in California, we have what's called a sanctuary state, and many say that nothing can happen in terms of, you know, getting rid of some of these illegals. But I disagree, and I really look forward to seeing how the lawsuit between President Donald Trump or the DOJ in California turns out, because, in fact, I don't believe that the sanctuary state is legal at all on any level.
I believe that I'm going to see these people prosecuted for being traitors to our country.
Yes. I would love to push for that, absolutely, because they're standing in direct conflict with the United States Constitution and the Bill of Rights. And as a matter of fact, you know, they're taking the stance that they're in the right. The states have the right of course, and the authority, they're independent in certain areas, but where it comes to immigration and national security, they don't. And in fact, I would say they're giving a safe harbor to enemies of the state, people who are here to cause harm. And that's a big thing. And I stand with you on that, Angie, that I would like to see these individuals who are quote unquote leaders held responsible for their crimes against Americans and against United States citizens. Something has to shake down here. The corruption needs to end, and the truth needs to be out, and there need to be consequences for these individuals' actions. I agree. So now, if you could say one thing to the people out there, share with them one thing, Angie, what would it be?
Like about Reuben, or
about you and your experience with Reuben and illegal aliens and the President Donald Trump, and the message you want to share with America about what you've gone through and what you want them to take home with them tonight.
I would like to say that I love my president. I have faith in him 100%. I know he's doing the right thing, and he will prevail. And everything we do, we have to do it for the future of our children and grandchildren, or there will be no future for them. Yes, we need to do this for the future of our children and grandchildren, so they can enjoy the American life. Because if we lose America, we lost everything. Where are we going to go? There is nowhere. My dad told me a long time ago when I was a little girl that I was born here, American, and I was American. Don't let anybody ever tell you you're not American. It's the greatest country in the world, and everybody wants to be here.
Yes, it's true. It's true. It's still true. Your dad's a wise man.
Yes.
Wow. Well, you had a great parent right there.
Yeah, my dad was great, and my mom. The funny thing is that my mom was born in Texas, so she had. I just found out about 2 years ago that she had 76% Native American.
Really?
So, and that's one thing my dad used to tell me when I was a little girl. He goes, "Don't let anybody tell you anything. You're not Mexican. If I wanted a Mexican child, I would have taken your mother to Mexico, and you would have been born there. You're American. Don't let nobody tell you different."
Oh.
And that's something that's always stuck to me. And he would even call us his little Indians, because my mom was Native American.
Right. Right. Wow. Well, it's important to say and to talk about out loud, bravely, without fear, and because the left, the media has kind of made it this stigma. Don't talk about race. Don't talk about ethnicity. Don't talk about, if you talk about being I'm white. I'm proud of being white. I'm proud of being American. I'm an all-American girl. But I can tell you my heritage. My family came here escaping the Holocaust, some of them. Some of them came from Scotland to Ireland to England to the United States. I'm going to tell you, I'm an American, and I love this country. And many of my family members have served in our military, and I'm just proud to be an American, and there's nothing to be ashamed about that. My own children are Hispanic and Native American Indian, and they're proud Americans, and we just have to embrace who we are as a people and as a country and support one another, and just remember that that's okay. That's good.
My husband, I've been married to my husband over 40 years now. Because Reuben would have been 41, so over 40 years I've been married to my husband. My husband's actually from Mexico.
Oh, he is?
And he lets me do what I do because he says it's not the same people coming in.
Well, there's nothing wrong with Mexican people. There's nothing wrong with Mexican people. There's nothing wrong with being a Canadian. There's nothing wrong with being from Central America or South Africa or North Africa or anywhere else in this country or any other country for that matter. There's nothing wrong with it. What is wrong is when we have criminal illegals, it doesn't matter what country they're from, because most of these people that come in here are not from Mexico necessarily. They're from Central America.
They're from everywhere.
They're from everywhere. You know, illegal aliens are damaging our country and our communities, and it has to stop.
Yes.
It has nothing to do with race.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't.
And your husband should be, you know, proud that he's a Mexican, and he should love, you know, America, and he loves you, and that there's nothing wrong with what we're talking about today.
Nope, there's nothing wrong with it. No.
So but I think we have to talk, you know, we have to share this way, because, again, the media has made it an evil thing.
You know, when I first lost Ruben, I met a lady because somebody asked me to go meet her because she had just lost her son.
Mm-hmm.
And her name's Gloria Torres. And we were strong together in the 90s. We actually got to meet President Clinton. It was for the gang violence.
Right.
And
he did a big push on that.
Yeah, and she contacted me. Her daughter contacted me a few weeks ago. My friend Gloria is dying. She actually has stomach cancer, and she wanted to see me. Every time I see her, I just want to cry, you know, because she was so strong, and she was a good speaker when it came to talking about her son, and she encouraged me to do a lot of the community work that I did in the past, and I still do. But, you know, I've been trying to get to the media, but that's why I tell you the treatment like poison. I'm trying to get to the media so they can do something to help her, because, you know, her kids can't afford to bury her. So I try to tell them, you know, can you at least put something, you know, for the GoFundMe so the kids won't be, you know, overwhelmed when she does pass, because she's going to go anyway. She's going to go. She's just fighting this stomach cancer, and she's going so fast, and I know her kids can't afford it, but they won't even talk to me. It's like, you know, just do it for her. Don't do anything else.
Wow.
But it's like they won't do nothing because I'm involved.
Wow.
You know, and it just hurts me that the community is like that. They're all bought and paid for by the farmers and ranchers that love all the illegals here.
Wow. And they won't even talk to you because of the stigma, the kind of... And this is why we have to talk, because, you know, we have to talk about the truth and not be afraid, because, you know, more people around us, once they see that it's not evil, you know, that it's okay to talk about these things, I think that we'll find that more people are like us than we realize, you know, and they won't be in fear anymore of what might happen to them if they speak out. Because that's part of it too, is fear that if you say something that you'll lose your job, or that you'll lose your place in the community, or that somehow you're a traitor to your community, and then you'll get pushed back from somebody influential in the community. Fear, they try to intimidate, and that might be where these people are too, you know, that it's like you said, you know, certain areas of the community, if they side with you, they may be pushed out.
Yeah.
You know, and that's not my America. I don't know about you. That's not the America I want to live in. I want the America to be restored to where, when I was younger, where we could live and love and really talk about issues. And we didn't have all the problems that we have today, but we have to talk about these things, because unfortunately the media is not helping us and dividing us. And really, I think what most people want, Angie, is to have safe communities, to love each other, be able to have strong families, have safe communities, and live a good life. That we have that in common with most people. So what's going on right now is just a symptom of the media and other people polarizing us from one another, and it needs to stop. And I'm so sorry to hear if your friends and her children. You know, if there's anything we can do to help her, we would love to help. But it sounds like you've kind of been cut off from them or from her. But You know, it's heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking because I hear what you're saying. You just want to help her so her kids don't have to suffer financially. But, you know, it's tough. It's tough. So now, what do you see is coming next for you? For you and your fight for America?
Yes. We got to keep fighting. We got to keep fighting. I believe that it's going to get better, though. I do believe that our president is doing the best he can.
Okay. And are you going to be speaking? Do you speak around the community, or do you, I mean, are you willing to talk? Because I know there are so many groups that would love to hear from you and hearing your message.
I actually still, I've been going to juvenile hall and to the youth
Oh,
center
good.
and to the prison since 1993.
Okay, good. Okay,
Yeah,
good.
I don't be quiet about Ruben, and I mean, I tell him that Ezekiel was an illegal, and they listen to me. I've never had a kid disrespect me in all the years that I've spoken at juvenile halls and the youth centers, and it's the adults.
It's the adults, right, right. I mean, it's their bias. It's their bias. Well, I want to thank you, Angie, for coming on the Erin Cruz Show and for being such a beacon of hope for us out there and pushing for the right things for our country and for other families and other mothers. You're such an inspiration, and I want to thank you for your commitment.
Thank you
and
for having me. Thank you for listening to me.
Oh, of course. We'd love to have you on again and, you know, talk with you and hear more. I want people out there who've heard your story to take to heart there are real people fighting the fight to retain our liberties and freedoms for future generations. And not one senseless death should come ever again. And that President Donald Trump is fighting. What were you going to say real quick? I was going to
say real quick, my fight has always been the media, because when Donald Trump came to Anaheim, and I met Donald Trump, the media wouldn't even look at me or Ruben. I was actually the first angel mom to speak on stage with Donald Trump. And they took me out completely.
They did?
They took me out. Yeah, it starts with Sabina Durbin in Anaheim. Yeah.
Wow.
So it's like they've been taking me out every time they see me. Is it because I'm Latina? And they don't want
Probably, because, you know, it doesn't go with their...
agenda.
It doesn't go with their agenda. It's actually counterproductive to their agenda, you know, and that's shameful. That's shameful because, you know, this is the reality is this is a raceless crime. This is a crime that happens to everyone, and you know, and it's happened to you, and you're a real story and a real person, and you were up there, and your voice should have been heard. And I'll tell you what, your voice is heard now. Everybody I know is talking about you and the Angel Moms and the movement you've started for President Donald Trump to help him get the border wall done and to ensure that other families are secure in America. They can, you know what, the media can't stop you. Angel Moms are going like holy wildfire through the country, and impact is being made. And just stand proud and tall and know that you're being a wonderful mother and an example to our youth and other mothers and fathers across the nation. Just don't ever stop your fight for freedom. You got that, Angie?
I won't stop.
And we're right here to stand with you and back you up here at the Erin Cruz Show.
Thank you so much, Erin.
Oh, well, God bless you, and hopefully we'll talk soon, Angie.
All right.
Standing on the edge of disaster, telling me you can't go on. I can hear your heart beating faster, wondering what you did wrong. Broken inside, losing your fight. I know what it's like to break. So let me hold you through the pain. I know what you're fighting for. You're in the middle of a war. Even down on your broken road, there's still hope. You are not alone. Tell me what you're waiting for. Just let me open up the door to give you hope. You are not alone. You're not alone. You are not alone. You're not alone. You are not a slave to the master, a prisoner inside your mind. I can even see what you're after, but I will never leave your side. Never lose hope, the end of your rope. Spend death face to face. Now will you stand and walk away? I know what you're fighting for. You're in the middle of a war. Even down on your broken road, there's still hope. You are not alone. Tell me what you're waiting for. Just let me open up the door to give you hope. You are not alone. Not alone. You're not alone. You're not alone. You are not alone. You're not alone.
To hear more and to learn more on how you can make an impact or about the Erin Cruz Show, visit us online at erincruz.com. That's ERINCRUZ.com. Thank you for joining us, and see you at the same time and the same place next week.